Start streaming.
Tony Caravan. You've been subjected to a highly sophisticated form of propaganda.
It's just what you need, and not what you don't.
Quality, quantity, and variety.
Rock Flux.
Let's get this show on the road.
Making up the rules as we go along. Good morning.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. All right, here we go.
Hey, buddy, how's it going?
Man, you were calling in pretty early. I have no idea. Melatonin, that was the vitamin. That's the thing. That's one of the things. I think that's in turkey. Is that one of the things that's in this turkey, or is that just something in your brain? Maybe I got to look up the, let's see. New window. Let's do this live. Side effects of melatonin. Melatonin, what are the risks? Mayo Clinic. Let's see. We could semi-trust them. Is melatonin a helpful sleeping aid, and what should the side effects be? The hormone melatonin plays a role in natural sleep-wake cycle. Melatonin, blah, blah, blah. The most common melatonin side effects are headache, dizziness, nausea, drowsiness. Haven't had those. In addition, melatonin supplements can interact with medications, including anticoagulants and antiplatelet drugs, anticonvulsants, contraceptive drugs, diabetes medications, medication that suppress the immune system. If you're considering taking it, it's right for you, blah, blah, blah. Melatonin is generally safe for short-term use. Unlike many sleep medications, you are unlikely to become dependent, have a diminished response after repeated use, or experience hangover effect. The most common melatonin side effects include. All right. So, hello world. The title of this show is The Light, the Stars, Ascension to the Fifth Dimension. Today is August. I gotta close this thing. Sorry. Today is August 14th. It's a Saturday. It's 5:55 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. 5:55. It's got to mean something to somebody. And he's, like 5 by 5. Yeah, like coming in 5 by 5. All right, Roger. Coffee now. Let's see what today's mix is. Slurp. Still hot. Strong. Medium dark roast. 100% Colombian coffee. And that's about that. Couple of weird things. Image of the day. Let's see here. I don't know why this. Oh, I see what's going on here. I have these filters on from yesterday. See, this is an interesting thing. If you crop a photo, apparently in this program, it will keep with that crop. Homeless encampment grow. This is my image of the day. These are kind of things. I'm going to start some like regular things. I can't guarantee every day I'm going to do these things. But, let me try to get comfortable here. But, we'll have some regular features if you don't mind.
Funky.
You got it, bro. Homeless encampment grows on Apple property. The tech company says it's trying to come up with a solution. It's trying to come up with a solution, man. Well, you aren't going to have a solution. Why are these people homeless to begin with? Right? Is it because BlackRock and these other companies are buying up all the houses? The median single home house in the U.S. costs $357,000 cash money. Or the Great Reset says you will own nothing and you will be happy. Well, I don't know how happy those people are necessarily. See, these people are in a real pickle. Not those people. They're beyond the word pickle. Pickle is is mild compared to their plight, right? No, these people, these authoritarians, are in a big pickle because they take a sip. The thing about it is, they don't want to make, when they've built projects, they prove to be an absolute failure. Okay, the projects created slums. Out of the slums, the gangs, took over the territories, and it just, and it was basically, if you lived there and you were so-called like normal, it was.
This is a nightmare. It must be a nightmare.
Right. If you, and otherwise you were just, the only way to, you either like became part of the gang or you somehow tried to escape. I don't know. It's sickness. They failed. Even where I live, it's, back beyond the sea. But beyond my area, my neighborhood, but not that far beyond, but back in the, thicket of things. There's sirens, all the time. And this area is like I said, I don't think it's a top 100 market even. It's somewhere, maybe a top 200 market. So it's like, it's a former city that had its day, but it's since, lost it. And so it's, and I'm on the outskirts anyway. I don't live in the heart of it. But, the sirens, they have, people get murdered and stabbed and, they get serious drug problems. The chief of police was like fired or resigned or something a couple of years ago because he was like selling drugs. I mean, that's he got addicted to drugs and then he was selling them out of the evidence locker or something like that. Ridiculous nonsense. A typical example of why I say former United States. But these people are in a pickle, not these people, but they say the authoritarians in charge of this former, country. And the thing is, I don't know what the hell they're going to do. If the median single family home's $357,000, I mean, my mortgage on this house, I told you before, mortgage, tax, and insurance is like $200 less. It'll eventually go over a little bit, but they can't. This area is just a little bit too depressed, and this neighborhood is not prime property area that they could really, justify raising taxes. I mean, they raised the water and sewer bill. That's out of control and stuff. And people won't move to, they've got this weird thing because of television, and people don't need television anymore because they have this stupid, idiotic thing, because this is the poor man's TV. I mean, it's the rich man's TV too, but it's also the poor man's TV. I mean, and for the life of me, I can't figure it out. We'll get into this show about love and, various dimensions and light and all that stuff in a second. So just hang in.
You're listening to Tony Caravan Live.
I'm just trying to get through something that kind of leads into this because it's, it's something that needs to be discussed. It's because if there was a little more love in this world, we wouldn't have ended up in this place where we are now anyway. But because people watch TV, because people watch their devices, because people are, caught up in this fake world that's presented before them, they think they need to live in that $357,000 single family home. Right? They think they either deserve it or they think that's what they should do. And the choice is either that or a homeless, encampment, as they call them. It's not really an encampment, right? And so, that's, if Apple wants to come up with a solution, if these companies want to come up with a solution, people have come up with solutions over the past decades. And that was low income housing, but individual housing like these. That was it originally, when the tiny house movement was in, which technically I always laughed at because, you're calling it a tiny home and you're selling them for $50,000, $60,000. But in reality, those tiny homes were what we used to call mobile homes or trailer parks, right? Trailers. I mean, what is it? It's on wheels. It's, but what happened was the tiny house movement became like the sons and daughters of the, of the wealthy, kind of. Because who the hell, is going to be able to pay $50,000, $60,000? I used to watch some show, and some of these houses they'd sell for almost $100,000. They were tiny homes, and I'm going like, we used to call that that was what they had in trailer parks. We used to call them mobile homes, and not like these double wides and stuff like that. I'm not being like negative on it. I'm just saying, it's not a tiny home. It is what it is. And I'm not talking about a big mobile home. I'm talking about pretty much trailer. All right. Something you could hitch on the back of a truck. If you're living in a double wide or what's now referred to as a kind of a mobile home or something like that. Modular homes, they call them now. That's a different story. They're expensive because there's more stuff in there, and they're bigger. And whether or not it's modular, meaning it was a manufactured home somewhere else and then moved to a spot, or I have to clarify this because it's confusing to some people. Some people might take offense if you don't clarify it. Or whether it was built on the spot, that's not the factor. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about these mobile homes that people are putting in people's backyards, their parents' backyard or their friend's backyard, or they're traveling around and they're just looking for a free place to, to freeload, that kind of stuff. Not people, living life. But there were guys that were coming out that were building these like little, kind of shed type homes, and then like the box stores got wind of that people were using like these various box store sheds and turning them into like little places to live. And suddenly you'd go to one of these box store parking lots where they used to have these sheds for a couple of grand, and they're selling them for like, $10,000-$20,000, right? See, this isn't capitalism. This is crony capitalism, rip-off capitalism. You know what I mean? This is it's called price gouging. That's not free market. The free market means, what can the market afford? Right? But the market can't afford price gouging. So in other words, when they decide to price gouge upon a lineup of gas, and the price of gas is out of the reach of people, and you can't. That's not like the free market. That's called price gouging. Okay. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. You can't get around it. There's no excuse. Yeah, sure, the guy's free, I guess, to do it, but I don't know. It's there have to be some boundaries, otherwise you might as well have, just nothing, and then society just collapses and crumbles, right? And the guy himself will lose, right? You raise the price of fuel to such and such a price, then nobody buys it, right? Then they go out of business. The problem with that is some people say, I see, you're actually proving free market, yourself. No, because like the lockdown thing, I'm going to get out of this thing too, and I'm going to get more into this peace, love, fifth dimension, vibrational the light and love in a second. Just bear with me. This is important because we live in a real world and we have to get over these hurdles in order to get to see the light. All right? These are the evil forces that are keeping people from the truth of existence. And so the person that criticizes this kind of thing doesn't realize that, no, like in the lockdown, what happens is these people go out of business forever, right? And then they're hanging at a homeless encampment outside of Apple's property or something. You know, and then it's a vicious spiral. So, you know, this is just a reality of 21st century existence. Like, it's been a reality all over. I mean, you could go back to, you know, medieval times, and I'm sure you could go back to times way prior to that. It's just the further back you go, you know, beyond the technology. That's why I brought this up. This is significant in, you know, in the epitome of modern technology. You have people living, you know, devoid of technology, who would have, in a non-technological era, would have survived better, you know, because they would have been able to, you know, hunt, fish, you know, forage, you know, that kind of stuff. You know, it would be a different thing. But now it's like people have, you know, you're not going to be foraging in San Jose, you know, or hunting. You know, I don't know the area that well to know about, you know, some caves where you could set up a fireplace and stuff. You know, so it's kind of funny in a sad way. But yeah, this stuff's going on all over the place, you know. And yet they're spending trillions of dollars on what they call infrastructure. But that money just goes to these billion-dollar contractors and basically political friends, you know. I mean, a lot of these problems can be solved, but they have to be solved with fresh ideas. Not, the tech company says it's trying to come up with a solution. Well, what's their solution going to be? Some kind of modular homes? That's why I brought that up. You know, some kind of thing like that? No, that failed. Projects, you know, low-income housing? No, but they just become projects because too many freeloaders are drawn to the areas. See, the idea of poverty in America is very misunderstood, you know, and it's mostly not just the, you know, the so-called corporatist politicians, you know, the ruling elite put, you know, nose up in the air, or the nouveau riches like Elon Musk's or like the people at Apple, right? That kind of look down at these people or try to, you know, say, oh, okay, yeah, we'll build some kind of, put them in some place and give them this. See, what they don't understand are basically the shades of gray of poverty. And that's why all efforts to solve the problem of homelessness and poverty have failed. And I'm going to give it to you because I'm a straight shooter. Nobody's watching this show. Nobody ever will. So it doesn't matter, but the truth is out there. And that's the whole idea. And that's the theme of this show. The theme of this show is love, light, and all that kind of stuff. And, you know, getting yourself, sending, you know, life is a soul experience, you know, consciousness. Use your creativity, use your senses, and think. All right? Don't use your bioelectric brain. That's meaningless, right? It's housed in this temporary android body. It's been indoctrinated, conditioned, programmed, and you're surrounded by propaganda. Just like this article's propaganda. It's a posed photo, right? You know what I mean? I mean, it's insane. So the solution to these problems is how you approach it first, number one. And so understanding that there's a refusal among this so-called woke generation and among these politicians and among these nouveau riche type of people to acknowledge what we would call in the past people called bums, okay, and gangs, all right, bums, gangs, thugs, right? Okay. So the moment you put out you create some kind of freebie place, all right, a project, a low income housing area, some kind of district, you offer something. Well, the word seems to pass really quick among the gangs, thugs, and bums. And so if this family that we're looking at here are reasonable, normal people, right? I mean, just regular people, word normal is kind of bizarre. They're screwed. And so they will be victimized by the thugs, bums, and the gangs. And that kid will end up joining a gang. It's either that, that's how you survive. That girl, unfortunately, I hate to say it, will probably be accosted by gang members. She's at that age, right? Prime target for those thugs to be abused, right? And so the real picture of this is that kid holding a gun, the girl being, held down by a couple of gang members, and the mother falling on the ground with tears in her eyes and black eyes and, defensive wounds on her hand, trying to save her kid. See, that's the picture you're not seeing. All right. The tech company says it's trying to come up with the solution. Well, 9 times out of 10, their solution is going to cause the picture that I just painted. No, the answer is understanding that. And so you have to basically make sure that the gangs, bums, and thugs aren't welcome if you're going to create some sort of place, safety net, temporary housing for people who are down on their luck for some reason. Instead of, it's the same with like the unemployment, that situation. There's 10 million jobs available in the U.S. right now. All right. Available. Open. Nobody wants to work. Why? Because the opportunistic unemployed have decided, why should I go to work, man? I'm getting unemployment. I'm not going to take some job and have to go somewhere, deal with all that stuff. And the longer you get out of a thing, the more like you just don't want to get back into it. You see? Of course, the whole system, the whole idea of obligation to do a thing, to pay a bill is kind of insane to begin with. I mean, that's why I've got out of that world. But you got to use your consciousness, your creativity to do that. And a lot of these people in these homeless places, they just, they're either victims in one way, shape, or form, or they simply have been so indoctrinated, conditioned, and programmed that they're so less in a sense that they just can't seem to tap into that creative aspect of consciousness. All right, where you can find a solution if you focus on it and contemplate it. Right, and that's how in order to solve any problem, the first step is you've got to contemplate it. You've got to visualize these things, right, and then you've got to gradually have the patience to step by step get out. I forgot about this, and I don't think I mentioned this in this show, but it just had a flash one time. in one time, when I was one of my early days down at the shore, in between apartment building, or like, I was staying at some place, and maybe either before I got a place or in between, some place didn't work out and ended up in some temporary place, and somebody, some idiot was renting out like a basement. It was literally their basement. It was like a humid, damp, musty basement where there was like some cots and maybe a makeshift hose type of setup as a shower, and maybe they just had a toilet there or something. With one of those like sinks that used to be like a wash sink for like a hand wringer washer or some old thing. And I remember crashing there for a couple of days or something because I was working and I needed a place where I could sleep, get a night's sleep, and freshen myself up and get dressed so I could get. And so I was determined. I go, hey, these other guys were just like, they were just bums, like hippies type of idea. I go, oh, this, in this place, and I'm like, so I made up my mind to get out of there, and I don't think I stayed there more than a couple of days. But I did what I had to do, and then I found better lodging, and then and my life went on, and I had my memories of all my summers were always super fantastic. But I just had that momentary flash. I do remember being in like a weird situation like that. And so what I'm getting at, and I don't want to stretch this out too much longer. So how you have to, unless you acknowledge that there are opportunistic bums, thugs, and gangs in this country on the magnitude of millions, okay? In the millions. You can never solve the problem of homelessness, right? And beyond homelessness also is crime and stuff, and all this other craziness that goes on. And the people in power, I don't care who they are, and the bureaucrats and law enforcement, they won't acknowledge that because they want to put everybody into the exact same category. So somebody down on their luck is a bum. Somebody who's a bum, is just a person down on their luck. You see, they're all lumped in together. And so they create these types of projects or homeless places, and they intermix predators with prey. Okay, do you understand that? That's very important. I'm going to say that again. They intermix predators with prey. That girl on the right-hand side, okay, that young girl, and that boy is prey. The mother's the mother, assuming that she's their mother. It looks like there's some family resemblance there. But the mother's the mother, okay? But those two children are prey. And they'll be prey to the bums, thugs, and gangs. And so the tech company says it's trying to come up with a solution. Well, their solution undoubtedly, I hope it's not, but it will be because things have been this way for time immemorial, from the former Western civilization that's completely collapsed around us, has been to intermix predators with prey. And predators always win. And especially when you look in the wild, like look at the Serengeti, it's almost genetically programmed into a gazelle that like when the lion, like once it grabs it, it just gives up. It just like lays there and lets the damn thing eat it alive. It just stops. If it's outrun and it's caught, Kid becomes part of the gang, and the girl, I don't want to say what it is, but we know what's going to happen to the girl. All right? And that's the way it goes. And this woke, so-called woke generation, because they won't acknowledge this idea of predator and prey and that there are actually people who are bums, thugs, gang members, and opportunistic unemployed. See, they won't acknowledge that. They think they're victims. No, the victims here, as far as we know, or however this picture was taken or chosen out of a series from some professional, this Andy Chu Bay Area news group, right? This is the Mercury News. It's a decent paper. The Mercury News is a reputable paper. All right. Well, this is a good photo. All right. Remember, I've been a publisher among my many hats that I've worn. And I'd be like, okay, and actually I said Andy. It was like and. I'd say, okay, and yeah, good photo. Okay, run with it. That works. Okay? I mean, there's a lot going on in there, and that's what you want to see. Right? A picture that tells a story. Right? Because that's how people are today. It's headline and a picture, image, right? It's a meme. It's the society we live in. But what that story tells to me, what I see from that story is a completely different thing than what these woke politicians see. Right? Because they won't acknowledge what I'm telling you. They just don't believe there are any predators. Well, they say defund the police, right? Right? They don't understand that there's predators or there's a need for that. Now, again, I'm not coming in defense of anybody who abuses power, including any kind of law enforcement that abuses their power, politicians or any kind of totalitarian police state. That's not what I'm pushing here. I'm saying in order to come up with a solution to the problem is the first thing you have to do is acknowledge what I said, that there are predators and prey, and you cannot mix the two, because when you mix the two, the predator always wins. So if you want to find a solution to this problem, Apple, trillion-dollar company, all right, don't go mixing predators with prey. And don't think you're going to take a 1960s, Great Society Johnson, housing project concept, modernize it with technology, right? And have Siri, turn on somebody's lights or something and think, wow, what's the word that Apple uses? The project reimagined, right? I hate that word. Everything's reimagined. No, it's not reimagined. It's copied. It's stolen. I mean, reimagine means you took something, you didn't have the creativity to come up with something new yourself. So you took something old and you basically said, oh, we've reimagined it. The project reimagined. The homeless encampment reimagined. No. You mix predators with prey, it doesn't end up nice for the fucking prey. That's the picture of the day. I could spend a whole show on that, and I don't want to. So, but I think you get it. You say, well, you didn't give us an answer, a solution. Well, there are solutions. Okay? The solution in this case would be keeping the two apart. Okay? And making sure that they stayed apart. But that will never happen in our society because it requires a judgment call. Do you see? That requires saying, looking at a gang member or a thug and looking at their record, their juvie record, sealed files, opening their sealed files, right? And saying, no, you can't live in this particular project, this particular housing encampment, or this place, or you can't be. It's like when someone abuses another person and they get a court ordered and they have to stay within such and such a distance of that person, right? Well, that's what has to be done. That's step number one. Well, step number one is understanding that there are predators and prey. Step number two is making sure that the predators are not allowed by law or whatever to be within so many, such and such a distance of the prey, And then it's opportunity. And then you take companies like Apple and these billionaires and these infrastructure bills that have nothing to do with fixing the infrastructure except for their cronies, their buddies who lobbied to get these $100 billion contracts. And you somehow make an environment, a situation where these down on their luck temporarily people, not opportunists, can get employment or something to do. And preferably, another big mistake people make is you don't throw somebody into a position of slave labor or wage slavery. You find, if Apple wanted to reimagine this, I'm telling you, here's the solution to this problem. There's a 3-step solution. 1, acknowledge predators and prey. Okay? All right? A bum is a bum. A gang is a gang. Gang member is a gang member. A thug is a thug. 2, don't mix predators with prey and make sure that there's, restraining orders. Okay? To keep predators away from prey. And 3, the people who are victimized or are in this safety net, then make sure they have the opportunity and are asked, interviewed, what do you like to do? What do you want to do? Right? And then you try to place them in a situation that is what they want to do with their life. Or at least for the time being, until, that will be a stepping stone for them to have a happy life, you see, and find happiness. Because if your job is just wage slavery so that you can buy materialistic things and make sure you get the latest iPhone coming out in September, right? Well, then there's no hope for you. You're not going to find happiness that way. Happiness is if you like to do a certain thing, and there are literally hundreds of things that people like. The diversity of likes and what people want to do with their life, right? What makes them happy is as diverse as there are, individuals, right? It's like I would say to to that girl there, the daughter, what would you like to do? What do you want to do? She might say, I just want to go to school. She might say, I like to paint. She might say, I like to work with my hands, make things. I'd like to work for Apple, right? I'd like to learn how to, how to make an app, how to work with computers, whatever. It could be anything. Like I said, I'm going to list here 100 things, but there are literally, okay? Carpentry, plumbing, who knows, whatever a person wants to do. I want to be the CEO of, of whatever. I want to be a chef. I mean, it's limitless. Whatever you like to do. I like to cook. I like to this. I like to that. And then so what these companies need to do, and these people who throw out all this money, particularly Silicon Valley, where you have all these VCs and all this, it's no sweat off of them to throw a few $1,000,000 out and to place, people or to work to get them, in some sort of situation. There's this VC guy named Draper that has like Draper University out there, right? And he takes in these people, that are basically like tech type people and stuff. And he goes through some kind of bizarre training program, 6-week program or something weird like that. But they need to do that with people like this, but just at a different level. Or maybe some of them, they could enter into Draper should say, I'm going to accept a couple people, a couple of those people into my program, after an interview. And the same with other areas. And that's how you solve the problem. So, one last time. Understand there are predators and prey. Number 2, restraining orders keep the predators away from the prey. All right? And number 3, sit down and interview. What Apple needs to do, set up some tents. It's hot out there. All right? Set up some tents or whatever. And, with a nice buffet, some food and stuff like that. And a nurse, a couple nurses, give these people some tests, see if they're malnourished, if they've got health issues. And then sit them down with trained counselor, with a well thought out questionnaire. Excuse me. Maybe you could give them each an iPad that has it built in, and they can keep the iPad, right? After filling out the questionnaire, and give them an email address with it, and say you'll get an email with the results and what we're see if where we can place you or what we can do for you. Problem solved. Problem solved. Where does the money come? It comes from there. It's Silicon Valley, man. The cost of setting up a little temporary series of interview and medical tents, handing out, a couple of 100 or whatever it is, iPads, and hiring a few nurses, and counselors is peanuts. Because this isn't something that's going to go on for a long time. You could solve this problem in 90 days. You want me to head up the project? Give me a call. I'll do it. All right? And in 90 days, I'll solve that problem. And everybody will be happy the best they can, unless they're liars or opportunists, right? Or some kind of, narcissistic sociopath or psychopath that's like playing some kind of game, right? Pretending to be something they're not, and they are a predator in disguise, right? A wolf in sheep's clothing, okay? That's enough said on that. That was our image of the day. All right. Our title card is Love, the morning show. We're going to talk about that in a second. It's hotter than hell in here right now. I mean, it's hotter than hell. Hotter than hell. How would I know? Climate. Okay, so let's take a look at what's going on. Yesterday's weather was wrong. As I predicted all along, Tropical Depression Fred is not forming into anything because there is still all of that sand that's being stirred up in the Sahara. But we could see heavy rain and flash flooding possible down in Arizona, New Mexico. But just remember, this happens down there. It's kind of like monsoon, so to speak. But the interesting spot right now is southern Florida, Miami way, down towards Key West, and the D.C. area just below the Delaware Valley. All right. In Virginia. And it looks like the rest of the place, it's rain/thunderstorms. We never got them in my neck of the woods here. Yesterday, and it was the map was somewhat similar to this. Currently, where I am right now, outside it's 68 degrees. The high is going to be 77, the low 59. That's nice, okay? And just for the sake of it, That's the weekend weather, because Sunday's looking like it's going to get back up in the 80s. But next week we should be fairly seasonable in my neck of the woods, which is the mid-Atlantic states, and pretty much around the country. So we're not, we really didn't have a bad, as we're winding down from the dog days of summer, it really hasn't been that bad. So, anyway. Weekend weather. That's your weekend weather on Tony Caravan Live. And here I am. Don't forget to get your hoodie. And get your mug, which I'm using right now. I test and wear everything. I was supposed to get a dashiki yesterday, and it never came, which was very disappointing. I have to do something when I don't do that often here, but I have to take a quick break, and I'm going to give you a musical interlude. And I should be back with 2 shakes of a lamb's tail's feather, hopefully. Okay? So enjoy the music, and I'll be right back. Okay, folks. Sorry about that. All right. Is left, right? I don't know. How long was I gone? Pretty long. Hopefully you have smarts too. Fast forward. I had to turn the air conditioner on. I had to deal with a couple of things. And they're dealt with. Pour some hot coffee. Seems I got like 2 cups out of this coffee maker this time. And let's try to pick up where we left off. That was Bob Thompson, by the way. Name of that song was Starfire. And I realized I was gone for more than 2 minutes and 36 seconds, which was the length of that. So forgive me. All right.
Good morning.
Good morning once again. Let's start all over again. I hope it wasn't gone too long. More than 5 minutes? The coffee seems to be just getting cool. So yeah, I guess I was gone longer than I expected. Well, what can I say, you know?
You're listening to Tony Caravan Live.
This is insane.
You know, it's I try, but sometimes I fail. So, the title of this show, once again, is 8/14/21, The Light, the Stars, Ascension to the Fifth Dimension. And by the fifth dimension, I do not mean the band. Though it was very interesting that band, The Fifth Dimension, you know, also had that song, The Age of Aquarius. I mean, it was really kind of funky, you know, like, you know, what were they on to, you know, really. So, love, you know, love is a topic. This whole idea of the light, you know, and, you know, I didn't mention it it's not, you know, in the title, but this idea of people talk about star seeds. Are you familiar with that at all? They're you know, there's this movement, and it's kind of, I don't know if it was born out of the New Age movement or not, you know. But if you go down certain rabbit holes, you know, those who are YouTubers probably are aware of these kinds of things. Because there's like so many topics on, you know, that that you find in your search. You know, it's this endless search for content, you know, because there's so little, you know, really good content to be found out there. You know, between the pay services and even on YouTube. I mean, every now and then you find some stuff and it's like, okay, yeah, and that like grabs you and you're into it for a week or two. But then it's like, I can't find anything to watch. And the people that you were watching or following, you know, some episodic type of, you know, event people doing some sort of thing, they let you down or they goof up, right? Or they become YouTube millionaires and then they just kind of forsake you, you know. And you know, you can't give them advice or anything like that because then they just like delete your comment or something because they're prima donnas. But that's not what I'm talking about now. So there's for a long time, you know, and if you're like even a fan of the show Coast to Coast, you know, they've talked about these star seeds, you know, and, you know, the light, you know, and ascending to the fifth dimension, you know, and I'm not going to mention specific people or sites. I got the air conditioner on amidst this thing. So it's like, whew, it's working. It's starting to work, but I'm still like kind of. 6:49 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, and it's a Saturday, and it's the middle of August already. So really, we only have about a month of summer left, more or less. In my area, it doesn't really go to the official, solstice day or whatever you call it, right? What do they call, it's first day of fall, but, technically, if you look at the calendar, let's see if I don't know if my calendar does that or not. Let's say it's around the 20th or the 21st usually. Apple doesn't even list it, which is bizarre, Yom Kippur is on the 16th in September. A couple of family birthdays. They don't even mention first day of fall. Isn't that weird? Anyway, I'm curious here to see what they're calling it these days. New window. September holidays. Usually there's this I used to watch this used to be wind calendars I used to get. Well, we know October 1st begins on the 18th. That always still got me, though. If they call it October 1st. But, it pretty much ends in the beginning of October. Now, I know fall begins. I mean, don't tell me I'm wrong. Fall begins September 22nd. Official first day of fall. What I'm looking for, it's the September equinox. That's what I was looking for. The word equinox. And I know you could laugh at me and say, well, I'm not a new ager. Sorry. All right. So the equinox. And that was another thing in the band, one of my favorite bands from the 60s, Brazil 66. We got a song called Pretty World, which is really cool. A couple girls. And they had an album called Equinox, right? Because that's where everybody's head was. And that's why I chose for this title card, Love. That's a type style out of. That's like a 60s hippie-ish type style. And, of course, the tie-dye background. The morning show. But, it's a pity that so many of those so-called hippies, yippies, whatever, turned into yuppies and, and now are just pushing kids into this wokeness and whatever. And they're basically, backing all these problems that we're having and, led to the downfall of civilization as we know it. And what's worse, I don't know why my CPU is rising. Really going up now, all of a sudden. It's weird. I mean, there's nothing happening. So, maybe I got to clean out my little computer box again. What the heck? I get the air conditioner on and everything. Unless some kind of insect got in there. I've been dealing with bug problems too. Which I hate to talk about. Amazon was supposed to deliver me a dashiki. Did I mention that before? I forget. Yesterday. I got this email. I'm not going to open it up because I'm having CPU problems right now. And so my mail comes sometimes around 3 o'clock. Sometimes it's earlier. Sometimes it's a little later. And I like to go upstairs around that time and just like I say, I have my TV and my chair and everything set up in the upstairs. This downstairs area I use in the early part of the day, and then later part of the day I'm upstairs and I'm up for good. I don't wear my shoes upstairs. So I'm up there, I'm there. It's a clean space. I sit down. I have my larger TV, which I watch YouTube on and stuff like that. And I just get comfortable, do some YouTubing, and then eventually go to bed early, because there's no way I could possibly be getting up at 3, 4, or 5 in the morning if I don't go to bed early. But anyway, I kept coming downstairs to check the mail because I had a thing saying that I was going to get a Friday delivery of this dashiki, which I would have been wearing right now. Like, there's 2 things I need to get. 1, I wanted a dashiki, and 2, I want to get a hat instead of wearing like a polo hat or these other things I have, or the beret I got back there. I need to get a couple of other hats. I want to get like a Hawaiian. Oh, that's that Hawaiian hat. Now I want to get like a hat that's like kind of palm tree-ish. I don't know, a Floridian or Hawaiian hat, so to speak. Anyway, the dashiki was supposed to come. I kept coming downstairs till like after 4 or so. Totally was ridiculous, messed up my day. They lied, and it didn't come. And like I was saying before, I'm naming names now. I'm done protecting these people. It's like that Instacart company that 3 items this week didn't come, And one of them was like Cool Whip. It's like, how could you be out of Cool Whip? The moron just didn't know what it was, or couldn't find it. I mean, it wasn't like I ordered some. I could understand, because sometimes I do, generally speaking, I like to get some, I look, if I'm going to use a service for something, if I'm going to overpay, because, you're paying shit delivery. And so, you take that, if you're only ordering like a dozen items, so you take those delivery and destination charges and divide them up. And sometimes it's could be as high as almost $10 or $12. So you order 10 items, that's $1 on top of everything. So you're paying a premium price. So you're a fool to order, just order something stupid, right? If somebody was unless you're desperate. But I mean, I don't order eggs and milk, but I mean, you'd be a fool if you were that type of person to spend an extra $1 for eggs and milk when you could just go down the street or something. So I usually order interesting stuff, right? But in this case, it was something like Cool Whip, because I had this, people don't know this maybe, but one of the Cool Whips, or the fake Cool Whips, whatever it is, has like beta carotene in it. It's like something like 10 calories. There's like no calories in it. There's no high fructose corn syrup or any of that stuff in it. And actually, it's like, it's non-dairy, and when you really look at it, there's not a lot of additives in it. So it's really just this fluffed up, semi-healthy actually. And I put it in the freezer. So if I get this, and I buy this like vegan ice cream, I'm not vegan, I'm not vegetarian, but though I am though I don't really eat like a lot of meat and stuff like that. No, in fact, I rarely do. But that's not the case. So I'm not, it's a religion to people, right? So, but I will buy certain things like that. I try to avoid soy, because soy is high in estrogen, right? That's why when they say soy boys, people don't understand that, why they're effeminate, because they're basically consuming all this soy, soy milk, soy ingredients, and all these things. And they, basically they're getting estrogen. And so they're, they don't have it, their testosterone levels are so low and their estrogen levels are high that they're girly boys, right? That doesn't matter. I don't care. I'm just pointing that out to you. That might offend some people who are into this concept of love and light and all this stuff, but I'm just calling things as they are. All right? That's what this show's about. This is just straight ahead, true 30 frames per second. All right?
You're listening to Tony Caravan Live.
I'm not making any judgment calls here. I'm just telling you, things you may or may not know. A lot of people just don't know these things. Whether or not that's important to you, whether or not it's important to what's going on in the world, that's for you to decide. So, in any event, Amazon, as bad as this other joint, I mean, if they're going to create this society where stuff gets delivered, right, then don't make promises you can't keep. Don't deny me 3 items, all right, when I only ordered 12. Okay? And Amazon, don't tell me I've got, I'm paying Amazon Prime annual fee or whatever. Don't give me an email that says, several days ago that delivery was going to be on Friday. Oh, and when I ask, because I have the Echo Dot thing, right? Hey, where's my stuff thing, right? You can ask it that. And it kept saying it'll be delivered today, right? The more and more I realize how primitive that whole Alexa. Can't say the name too loud. It's in the next room. But how primitive that is. And it, like I said this once before, if they could, if only the people at Amazon were listening to me and they could combine the technology of Replica with a K, that AI, and replace that with the Alexa, they'd kick Apple's ass. Really. Or if Replica somehow, would approach them. It's one of those things I almost wish I should send a letter to the CEO of Replica. Because the other one you could converse with. And this thing is just pulling stuff out of Wikipedia or it's just it's wrong. It doesn't know. AI in general is is something that's people have really don't understand, and it's overblown and overthought by most people. But it as a tool, it does, as a tool, it's a good tool if properly used. And if it's properly enabled. And this thing they have is just, all it's doing is listening in on everything you do and trying to, build that profile, that, this perfect demographic profile like Facebook and Twitter and every other social media, including this one. They're just gathering so much information gathering to create some sort of Minority Report, profile of your future actions, future purchases, and all that kind of stuff. It's sick. It's a waste of time. All right. Even from a marketing standpoint, it's overkill. All right. Because, they don't understand the simplicity of people. And that's another problem with having so much, and I don't want to get on this kick of this woke thing or whatever, but of the people that they have, the hired people that are making these policies at these companies, that they're afraid to go into, really get into demographics. Remember, I was a creative director at an advertising agency. So, and I know even back then, and we're talking in the 90s, where I'd sit at the table, conference room, and I've had people who, the people who work for me around me, and I'd be coming out with with some kind of demographic remark about a client and what we needed to do, what a campaign should be, who we should be focusing on, what type of individual, whatever it was, what the ads or whatever we were creating, what the content should be, so I was sending them away with their various tasks, but I wanted to give them a clear idea of what I was looking for. And the faces even back then on some of these people, before any of this, modern day insanity, wokeness, world, And, and often I would just have to correct their stuff. They just wouldn't follow directions properly. And I'd have to fire some people, but other people I would constantly have to be like correcting their stuff. They're adults. They were working for a company. And I hate to say it, but it's the truth. I was always right. They were always wrong, without exception. And the thing is, I used to say humans are like car keys. Now, it's not that way anymore because cars work differently. Nowadays, some cars don't even have keys, old-fashioned keys. But there were times like when like a GM had like 16 keys for like a certain car. 16 different keys. So like, the odds of going into a Walmart parking lot, if you had a certain Chevy, you had your key, you could just keep putting it into, enough cars and it's going to open another car, And I used to say, that doesn't work now. Nowadays you push a button and your car starts, so you have some digital thing and all kinds of other weird stuff. This is the early days, all right? They weren't making thousands of different locks, put it that way, all right? They had a process and, law of probability and statistics came into play that the odds of two cars being next to each other of the same model that had the same lock set, the odds were like, astronomically against it. Though that did happen sometimes. Everything is possible. It's just highly improbable. Okay. So I used to say people are like cars. There's like 16 different types of people. And I was using 16 as an arbitrary thing, and I would always, I'd rattle off maybe about the first 7 or 8 demographic profile types, right? And of course, everyone at the table, they'd be like, their jaws would drop or their eyes would open wide, and because I was right, and they would realize that, he's right. Yeah, I know somebody like that, or that's me. And generally, it's true, and that's what these people miss out with this, where they're gathering too much information, is they don't understand that the human animal, all right, the programmable bioelectric brain, as I say, the jello mold in this thick skull of yours, not your consciousness, okay? We'll get into this, spirit and soul idea, all right? But that thing that your parents send off to the nanny state after maternity leave and let the nanny state raise it for the first 20-some years of its life, which I say is basically almost half of a person's life expectancy now, is spent in indoctrination, conditioning, and programming. And when you come out, you enter the world of propaganda. But those people, okay, without creativity, without that idea, the spontaneity, the creativity, which comes out of consciousness, the soul experience where you really take in the input from your senses, your 6 senses, 5 plus 1, right? And you blow people's minds. And that's how you ascend from this existence that we're in right now, all right, to a higher level, a higher dimension. But the idea is that, and this even ties into the earlier part of the show where I was talking about homelessness and how people, that's all misunderstood. is that right now they're gathering too much information. It's information overload. And it's like, you've heard the term, you're overthinking it, right? It's like, a thing I often mention on this show is like Occam's razor. The answer is usually, the most obvious, simple solution. But people overthink things, and particularly bureaucrats and these alphabet agencies. But the alphabet agencies have more or less are now reliant upon what we call big tech, right? What I call, which is one of the components of the corporatocracy, which has taken over politics, right? That's the world we live in. I'm sorry again to have left you before like that. Just the coffee's cold too because of that. So don't overthink things, right? And that's going to be the downfall of the corporatocracy, ultimately, right? And they're already making a lot of mistakes. Unfortunately, the mistakes they make affect people, because by overthinking and over-collecting data, then there are too many false accusations and too many people that are, either pigeonholed into some sort of thing or grouped, with someone else. And you see that in the news, and you see that particularly mostly in the media, and I mean all media. Right? That includes social media and broadcast media, print media, all media, right? And that's how they come up with these blanket terms. So they say all these people are anti this, though that group of people are, right? Such and such, and I'm not going to get into the words and the stuff, but you know what I'm talking about. And so they're wrong because they don't understand. See, it's demographics, and the whole concept of a demographic profile, is can be a positive thing and it can be a negative thing. In a positive way, it, in terms of business, say, for example, it's a cost-saving measure, because you don't wait. By knowing who your audience is, your market is, you don't waste money advertising to people that have no interest in your particular widget or service. So in that respect, it's harmless, and it's actually advantageous and cost effective, to a business person. All right. But in politics and in government, what we call government, which is really a corporatocracy, because there's no government anymore. People have to get that through their head. All right. The governments are run by big tech, big pharma, military contractors, central bankers. All right. The powers that be, people who have a vested interest, financial or otherwise, interest in the outcome, of what legislation, which basically is this authoritarian, or totalitarian police state, whatever they're creating, but it's a monster, like Steppenwolf said in the 60s. Listen to the song Monster sometime. Listen to the lyrics of that song. It'll blow your mind. There's so many stuff out of the 60s was right on. And it's a disgrace that these people who grew up in that time and listened to that music and were a part of all those movements, how they've just abandoned it, right? And became, just brought upon us this living hell and the destruction of everything that was good. So yeah, so there's good and bad about it. But what's happening right now is there's just too much data collection and too much collating of that data, and too many classifications are being made, because the more data you have, the more cross references that can be made. And so that people would then be put into a category because so many boxes would be checked off, as I say, so to speak. That suddenly someone might be thrown into a category that they're not in because of over collection of data, right? And that could be as simple as watching certain TV shows, right? And webcasts, following somebody, on Instagram because you like the picture, but you don't know anything about the person, but you like the photos that they put up, and some things like that. And suddenly, that checks off a few boxes and puts you into a category. But in reality, if they look holistically at you as an individual, they would realize that you are a completely different person. And you don't deserve to be put into that category. But see, that's the problem with algorithms, right? And an over collection of data. So there comes a point, there's this point where it's just it's overthought. There's it's like in that movie Sneakers, the line in there was, I have it posted in my bar. I have it, I think I printed it out and I put it on my wall. It's just like a wall of so many crazy things. And, in fact, it looks something like this, but this is from years ago. It's changed. You see all that stuff on the wall. Anyway, I might have it on there. Yeah, up top, above the girl with the breasts and the cigarette, it says too many secrets. See that? Quick, gone. Anyway, yeah, it's the same thing. It's like, unchecked and letting them get out of control. These alphabet agencies just created too many secrets, were involved in too many coups, too many, just meddling in too many things. And the same with big tech and these companies like Facebook and Twitter and Google. There's just this unbelievable amount of data collection has gotten so out of control that it reaches a point where too much basically takes you back to having is as bad as too little. You see? Do you grasp that? It's like I say, you're overthinking something sometimes. And you lose consciousness, or you lose focus on what you were trying to figure out or solve in the first place, because you're overthinking. And that's what I mean. Then it's like back to like Occam's razor. Let's look at the obvious answer. It's like like Sherlock Holmes type of investigation. So looking at the big picture is fine, but that's, it's impossible to look at the big picture. I've said this a million times. On here, you can never see the big picture, right? The big picture is love. Too bad that's not showing up on people's screens. So the big picture is simplicity. The big picture is obvious, is the obvious answer. I mean, it sounds corny to people, but it's like that song, What the World Needs Now, Burt Bacharach, Hal David. Hal David was one of the greatest lyricists out there. You know, Burt Bacharach made some great music. I'm sorry to say, I listen to it all the time. I know people don't even know what I'm talking about, some people. And people who do are going like, you got to be crazy. What the world needs now is love, sweet love. Okay? You know? Or like classic R&B from the 70s, you know, was all about love. You know, guys like Marvin Gaye and stuff like that, you know. But, yeah, love is the answer. That was a Todd Rundgren song, I think. But that's the whole idea. And so, you know, this idea of love and light and ascension, okay, which is the title of this show, which took me this long to get into it, but you have to cover all of these realities of life. And I realize that people will have gotten lost and turned this thing off, you know, in the playback. Right now, nobody's watching. That's how it always is. But in the playback, people will have gotten lost and turned off when I was talking about those homeless people at Apple. Or when I left and the music stopped and there was a camera just focused on, you know, nothing, you know, for whatever it was, 2 or 3 minutes after the song ended. But the point is, all of this stuff helps you get to this point, what I'm trying to say. And it makes sense then. It should make sense to you. And if it doesn't, then you rewatch it and fast forward that during that blank period of time. All right? It's another beautiful thing about this, about these tools that we have. It's like, use them as tools, but don't let them control you, right? And that's why I often say, you know, even about these VPNs and this stuff that these people on YouTube say about your privacy and all that stuff. It's like, forget it. You have no privacy. There is nothing. There is nothing that will give you privacy. In fact, there's literally nowhere on earth you can go and actually have privacy. You would literally have to go into some kind of deep underground crystal cave somewhere where a satellite couldn't find you. Because the earth is constantly being like scanned by these satellites. Some of them private, you know, like the Google Earth type satellites, and many of them government, you know, like spy satellites, and then there's weather satellites, right? Like, you know, and you know, there's just, and other countries. I mean, you've seen the pictures of space junk, right? You know, I don't know if I have it, if I can quickly bring this up, I will. If it's a hassle, I will not. All right. If it happens to be in my box, I'll do it. We're just going to call this simple image, browse, and let's see if I happen to have it. Space junk. If it's a quick find, I'll show it to you. If it's a hard find, we're not going to waste time on it. Earth junk. Unload image when not showing. Okay. That's the planet Earth. Let's let it fill the whole screen for you so you can, if you even have a smaller screen, you can grasp this. If you see that? Those are satellites. And space junk. And you know, guys like that idiot Elon Musk, I'm sorry that I say that about him, because some people think he's their like savior or something. But he's putting more and more of these damn things up there in actually lower Earth orbit that are affecting us, like shooting microwaves at us. 5G, who needs it? But this is what the planet Earth would look like if you were coming from Alpha Centauri or something, right? These so-called, space UFOs that the Pentagon and has released, and the Navy has said they've been following. All right, so you're coming from some other planet. This is what you see. You don't see the Earth as a big blue marble like they used to show on like Sesame Street or some education channel. That's what you see. Space junk, satellites. Look at them. Isn't that insane? Anyway, yeah. So there's no privacy. You know, they have so many satellites that are scanning the Earth, and you know, and communication satellites, spy satellites, you know, satellites tracking GPS this, you know, looking for that. You know, satellites, you know, they don't use facial recognition, you know, they use that. But they got satellites that are looking at people walking and like are figuring out who they are from their gait. Do you know what your gait is? Your gait is like how you walk. So unless you're going to walk like John Cleese in the old Monty Python, like Ministry of Silly Walks, all right? But then they'd figure out that you're the type of guy that does that, and they'd say, oh, that's so-and-so who's trying to whatever. That's his or her gait. There's no hiding, all right? There's no privacy, right? It's information overload, just like years ago there were too many secrets. So what does this have to do with love and light and ascension? Well, you just have to forget about all that stuff. You have to use these things for what they are. They're tools. You know, I use this as a communications medium. I don't make any money on this thing. I'm not monetized. I don't have any sponsors. You know, I say Great Solar Stuff is a sponsor. It's not really. It's just a website I have left over from when I used to have 60 websites or so in the 90s. Right? And I put on there some great solar stuff I found that I think could help you in case there's a weather, you know, or a grid down situation, which happens every year and happens in storms. And I showed you the climate, you know, map earlier, you know, right, where there's like severe storms in a couple of locations, right? So chances are you get a storm like that, the power goes out, and you see my on-air light up there, okay? Well, that's being powered by one of those things that are on Great Solar Stuff. And I had, you know, and I recharge that once every couple months. And it's rechargeable by a solar panel, but you could plug it in and recharge it in your house, or you could recharge it in your car. Nobody bought one. I bought one. It's the same with this. You know? I bought the mug, right? Everything you know is wrong. That's a shirt hanging on the wall there. I bought one. You know? I think you can get some of my shirts in tie-dye, by the way, too, with my sayings on them. So if you go to TonyCaravanLive.com. But I've bought them, but nobody else has. So I use this as a tool, as a communications medium to get this thing across. And, you know, and there's a lot of interesting people talking about this, you know, idea. And so it doesn't matter, you know, where your head is and where you come from. You know, like I say, you know, some people like to classify other people or what people talk about as a thing. Like they're saying, "Oh, that's New Age," right? Or that's or that's religion, right? Or like even, you know, or that's scientism. Nose is itching. Scientism is a word I use often because, sorry, my mustaches are a pain sometimes. Goatee, it's actually a goatee, but it's getting a little lighter down towards the lower areas. It's time for some Just for Men. But that stuff's too expensive, and I need a trip to the Dollar Tree. You buy the same stuff for $1. It costs you like $14 if you buy it in the store. So, which is another solution to these problems that these homeless people have, and that is just even a school on budgeting and teaching people that, you can live cheap. There's probably people out there, I've seen these panhandlers they've interviewed in like LA homeless tents and stuff. And these guys are bringing in some, panhandling like $100 a day and stuff like that. In other words, they're making like, $500, $600, $700 a week on the streets, panhandling, right? $500 a week is $2,000 a month. Well, my mortgage, taxes, and insurance here, okay, is less than $200 a month. And so, in other words, a lot of these people, they don't want to change what they've got. All right. Because they could, you're living for free in LA and, you're slick and you're like, you're not wimpy. You're a tough guy, so nobody's going to bother you. You're making a couple of grand a month. So you could do, you're just going into your tent to crash at night. Or if you're lucky, you're like hooking up with somebody at some nicer place. Yeah. But I mean, those other people that are victims, like I say, you got predators, prey, and opportunists as well. But it's mainly predators and prey. That, someone needs to teach them, what I do. And that's many of my shows I've gotten into that, and I'm not going to waste the whole end of this show in that. But the idea is I made a conscious decision when I was making decent money that I did not want to be, have to go jump through hoops and do all of this stuff and have this stress and do that for the rest of my life. And I said, I'm going to basically scale down my life so it costs me less to live and find myself an inexpensive house in a decent place. I've been here like 5 or 6 years. I don't know why my nose is ridiculously itchy. There's nothing in. It's clear. See? I mean, when your ear gets itchy, somebody's talking about you. But when your nose gets itchy, I have no idea what that is. So, someone, that's another thing that's not taught to people. It's just like trades. This idea of all these people have this incredible college debt. And so some of them, I guess, have become homeless or are living in their cars or living in the basement of their parents' house. That's what people say, or just living with their parents. And the idea is that, no one ever told them, like, man, you don't have to go to college. That degree you're thinking about getting in, such and such studies, there's no jobs for that in the 21st century, in the year 2021. Right? I mean, if you want to study that, that's cool. But what do you want to do with your life? What do you like? What are your likes and dislikes? I've had shows on that. If you go back and I really wish I could index them, but this is a one-man show. I don't have any assistants. There's nobody else here. I live alone with a cat, And there's just not enough time in the day for me to go. I do these shows 7 days a week, right? So I've already done, close to 200 shows this year. I was figuring that out. It's like almost 200 shows already this year alone. And most of the shows are 2 hours long. So it's like, I don't have an assistant. I don't have anybody to, go through and index these things. But, just because I brought up the topic, I'll try to do it in a minute or two. You take a piece of paper and you put your likes and your dislikes. And this would be the same thing that I would do with that girl in that picture that I showed earlier. All right, let me just get rid of the title card for a second. that girl right there. One of my part of the interview would be, I want you to, take this, or take this iPad, since she's on Apple property, or take this piece of paper and go over there, some other area where they could sit, get a meal, right? And get checked out, tested, and, whatever. Have a little a nurse, give them the once over, make sure they're healthy or they don't have anything. And on this piece of paper on the left-hand side, put the things you like and the things you dislike, or the things that you make you happy and the things that make you unhappy. And make that list. And don't feel pressured you have to finish it today, So take it back with you, or, put it in this program with Pages, it's called. And, they could set up a thing. They could, somebody at Apple can make an app. So it's easy for them to have this 2-column thing that they could just type in, or even scribble in, because they have all this stuff now. You can scribble and it turns it into text, right? Use these tools that are available to us to help people. And then allow these algorithms to help that person see. Because some people are like, I don't know what I like. I don't know what I want. I don't know what I want to do. Right? Some people are like that. They can't see the forest for the trees. It's not their fault. It's just the way it is. They've been put through this ridiculous, raised by the nanny state, indoctrinated, conditioned, and programmed. Right? So you help them out. Use the tools that we've created for positive things. And you can do that yourself too. Anyway, so I decided, I'm not going to be spending a couple of $1,000s a month, just giving money to some idiotic landlord for an apartment I'm not using half the space in, a town that I don't really care, I'm spending most of my time, in computers and listening to music and doing things like that, that it's not my, that it's not, a sense of place was not that key important to me. And so I found a more inexpensive place to live. Well, a much more inexpensive place to live. And I cut my costs by like 10%, not by 10%, to 10% of what I was paying. Right? I was paying a couple of grand. Now I'm paying $200. So, that's another solution to people that have hard times and are overwhelmed by the stress of debt and trying to survive. And it's like, do you really need to be there? Well, I don't want to leave. I don't want to like move out of, It's like, yeah, think about it. Make the list of likes, dislikes, pros and cons, and blah, blah, blah. What is it are you really getting living in some place where there's feces on the ground? And, there's people threatening you and people trying to pick your pocket and stuff like that. Right? Oh, well, I've got some friends here, and I've got this. Yeah, you can make friends anywhere. All right? It doesn't matter. The point is, anyway, so what is important? Love is the answer. Love and light. Okay? You have to, you don't have to do anything, but you have to get it through your head that there are alternative ways of thinking and living other than what's being programmed and propagandized and the indoctrination that you're getting. You see? And so I personally believe that, I've written a book, which is back here, Codex, that deals with the hard problem of consciousness. All right. There's my old morning show mug. For someone just tuning in who's never seen this show before, there's my set. And this thing right here underneath the transistor radio is the thing that's powering that on-air light up top there. But I do believe, as do many other people, and it's called the hard problem of consciousness, is that consciousness is separate from your bioelectric brain, that jello mold inside your thick skull. All right? The jello mold, your bioelectric brain is programmable. Okay? Consciousness isn't. Consciousness is you. Consciousness is also what some people call their soul, or their spirit. Okay? And it doesn't matter you don't have to get lost and caught up in these kinds of things and say, well, soul, that means you're into some kind of religious thing. Or spirit, like on some of those New Agers. No. You want to call it spirit. You want to call it your soul. You want to call it consciousness. All right? The you that sees the world in the first person, that thing that has the creativity in it. All right? I don't care. It doesn't really matter. For me, this is a soul experience, a conscious experience. Life is using your consciousness, your creativity to survive and thrive, as I always say. I'm trying to get this chair. I'm not going to tell you that it's not sometimes a struggle when you don't have all of the creature comforts. Excuse me. I'm the first one to admit that. But you get by. Sometimes you have health problems. Sometimes you have, you wish you had a thing. I've got roof problems, I've been dealing with a neighbor. It's kind of like a witch, but a nasty one. But you get through all that stuff. Okay. The point of the matter is, it's the idea of whether or not you believe in an eternal soul, whether you believe consciousness is detached from your bioelectric brain, your jello mold. All right? Whether or not you're allowing yourself to be programmed as an android, right? Or you're an individual. You're your own person, your own self. And that's what consciousness is. And the ultimate thing in the universe is love. Love is love and light. So that's what I choose to follow. And service to others is better than service to self, because self-service gets you nothing, And that's for the people and the politicians, and that's what happened. That's why Western civilization is collapsing, right? That's why I call this the former United States, because these politicians, these people in charge, this corporatocracy, it's all service to self, right? Too many secrets, too much data collection. They're overthinking everything, overcalculating everything. They don't see it. Life it's not that complicated. It's just about, you could take it down to one word, love, right? Look up at the stars and you see light. The sun, light. I said in yesterday's show, NASA and the UN IPCC, they kind of deny that the sun even exists. And I was talking in terms of it affecting climate. Like they were saying it doesn't, the sun doesn't even get through the top layers of the atmosphere. It's like, yeah, that's why you got sunburn the other day, right? Yeah. So, you can laugh about these people at sometimes. You could get stressed out, right? I saw one doctor where he was trying to tell people, people dealing with stress and stuff. One of the things he said was, don't watch CNN. It was actually one of the line items on the thing, his medical advice, among a host of other dietary and other things to reduce stress. One of them was, don't watch CNN. And I mean, and you could say don't watch television, period. Any network news or cable news, doesn't matter what, right? Because these people they're just messing with you, man. So the idea of, pure love, pure light, all right? Your eternal soul. Life is a soul experience. Living life to the fullest by utilizing the input from these senses that we have, right? And using that input and your experience, the soul experience, as a good, for good, right? Service to others instead of service to self. I said, I don't make any money on this thing. Yeah, you see I've got this, there's this girl standing, on the screen wearing a shirt that says game over. And I still stand by that. You see, I'm not one of these people that's going to say, hey, everything is beautiful. It's not. Everything isn't beautiful. If you look in these inner cities, it's horrible. If you look in these war zones, it's horrific. When I was trying to find an image of the day, the main thing that kept coming up was like Afghanistan, and they want to send in, and Mitch McConnell wants to bomb people and stuff. Okay? So to hell with that. It's not, it's not a beautiful world. It's just like I had the picture of the earth. The earth isn't a big blue marble anymore. It's surrounded by space junk. Right? So, you have to deal with reality, at the same time. Don't be a fool. You can't live in a dream world. But believing in love and light and truth and beauty is not a dream world. That's reality. Okay? So you can choose your reality and you can do the things that make you happy. Right. I always go back to that idea. If there's anything you want to take away from, the founding fathers of the U.S. is that great, fantastic, super fantabulous line, the pursuit of happiness. That's what it's all about. So think about it. Love, light, happiness, truth, beauty, right? Those are the things you should be focusing on. And if you're surrounded by stress and you're putting yourself in situations, or you're in a situation that's stressful, and you're around people that are just bringing you down, or you're in a bad situation in a job or a location, then you got to think about making a change. You can't rush into anything. You got to think it out. It's not that easy, but it's not hard either. It's just sometimes it takes a little time to work things out. And many times it starts with just a simple list. Things I like, things I don't like. Things that make me happy, things that make me unhappy. Right? And let that list tell you, be something you can look at and see it in plain English in front of your face. And then that's the start of something, that'll help you make the right decision. And remember to scale down. If you're stressed out, to be stressed out from materialistic things or because of cost or of debt or something like that, just scale down. You don't need all that stuff. You don't need to be in some overpriced neighborhood, right? So what? Anyway, that's what I was trying to bring across. And, you would think, well, I thought you might say more about love and light and ascension into the fifth dimension. Well, it's not that complicated. the point of the matter is, if you open your heart to love, you share love, you see the light, understand consciousness is you, it's yourself, you take the input from your senses, and you have service to others instead of service to self, then you will have this soul experience and you will ascend into the fifth dimension, the next vibrational existence. All right? And I know there's some people that sounds freaky. People like, oh, hard science. You just, there's nothing there. Well, if you want to believe that, then you wasted your time watching this video. There are too many examples. There are too many people, all right, that have astral projected, right, that have experienced, things that are beyond what the scientific textbooks find acceptable. There was more, I say this, and I'm getting towards the end of the show, but when you look back throughout all of recorded history, think about that, recorded history, okay, matter of factual stuff recorded, whether it was on stone tablets, scrolls found in clay jars, right, or various books from Bibles, holy books to just writings that go back through the millennia, right? You will find that what the scientists, these critics, right, that there is way more, exponentially more information that points towards spiritual existence, an eternal existence, and what the scientists call mythology, than there is what they call factual or hard science. Hard science has only been around for a couple of 100 years, right? But, think about how much information about, what they call mythology, spiritualism, and everything else. Think about how there's so many hard records and writings about that. So at one point you have to look at it and say, well, maybe that's not all mythology. Anyway, that's all I have to say about that today. And I'll talk to you tomorrow. Have a great day. It's a Saturday, and hopefully you don't have any severe weather where you are.